Hello, my name is Hera. Welcome to another new Hera podcast. Before we start with the show, I just want to thank you to all the watchers on the YouTube and the listeners of my podcast for listening and watching my podcasts. Now we can start with a podcast. The first topic of today's topics is Jake Paul versus Ben Askren fight. I think they doing the pretty good job of actually trying to fight each other. Ben Askren is an MMA fighter and he's been a long time in this game. Jake Paul last time, but more on the boxing side than Ben Askren. But I think the more competitive and the more fighting IQ Ben Askren have, and I think he will win this fight no matter what Jake Paul doing, because Jake Paul is a loser who's trying to fight a professional fighter. I don't know why he's even trying. And the next topic, so we can try to go to the next topic, but before that let me just say I've launched a merch store, freedomapparel.com, and I'm wearing this bird t-shirt right now. You can cop that on the freedomapparel.com. So let's start with the main topic today. The main topic today is the new world order. What is the new world order? It comes from the Latin words Novus Ordo Seclorum, which appears on the backside of the Great Seal of the US since 1782 and on the back of the US dollar bill since 1935. Means literally New Order of the Ages, but conspiracy theorists translate it as a New World Order. The term New World Order refers to a group of genetically related people with a global agenda to create a fascist world government which replaces all independent nations. This group of people is extremely influential and powerful. Many of the world's top political leaders, wealthiest people, corporate leaders, and high members of royal blood, better known as the black nobility of Europe, are part of this group. On February 17, 1950, Zionist banker Paul Warburg told the US Senate, "We will have a global government whether you like it or not. The only question is whether that government will be achieved through conquest or consent." The New World Order ultimate goal is to have complete control over every individual on the world and to reduce the world's population by 5.5 billion people. It is speculated that the major political and financial events are orchestrated by organizations behind the New World Order. Many current and historical occurrences are considered to be steps in a secret agenda to reach global domination through secret political meetings and decisions. In 1992, Dr. John Coleman published Conspirators' Hierarchy, the story of Committee of 300. In his book, he researched the New World Order agenda of global domination and control. He wrote about the New World Order, a one world government and one unit monetary system under permanent, non-elected hereditary oligarchists who self-select from among their numbers in the form of feudal system as it was in the Middle Ages. In his one world entity, population will be limited by restrictions on the number of children per family, diseases, wars, famines, until 1 billion people who are useful to the ruling class. In areas which will be strictly and clearly defined, remain as the total world population. There will be no middle class, only rulers and the servants. All laws will be uniform under a legal system of world courts practicing the same unified code of laws, backed up by a one world government, police force and a one world unified military to enforce laws in all former countries where no national boundaries shall exist. The system will be on the basis of a welfare state. Those who are obedient and subservient to the one world government will be rewarded with the means to live. Those who are rebellious will simply be starved to death or be declared outlaws. Those a target for everyone who wishes to kill them. Privately owned firearms or weapons of any kind will be prohibited. Members of New World Order. Who are they? Most members of the New World Order are oil barons, international bankers, and high-ranking people from major multinational corporations and the pharmaceutical industry. The royal family of England is playing a big role in the New World Order. Especially Queen Elizabeth II and the House of Windsor, who are descendants of the German royal family Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. They changed their name to Windsor in 1914. The New World Order agenda and the important decisions are made in London, Basel and Brussels, NATO headquarters. Many organizations such as the United Nations and the UN agencies such as the World Health Organizations are part of the New World Order. Same goes for NATO, which is military tool of the New World Order. The leaders of the rich nations such as US, England, Germany, etc., members of the G8, are fully cooperative participants in the New World Order. The New World Order has become so powerful that it can select individuals to become the leaders of nations such as the US, England and Germany. It did not matter whether Bill Clinton or Bob Dole became presidents in 1996 because they both followed the New World Order agenda. Everyone who doesn't follow the New World agenda, such as President Kennedy, Aldo Moro, President of Italy, and Ali Bhutto, President of Pakistan, is killed. I don't know who is Ali Bhutto though, but I assume he is president. More recently, William Colby and Admiral Borda were assassinated because they weren't doing what was told to them, or to try to expose the New World agenda. New World propaganda is second topic main. The New World propaganda uses a lot of propaganda, but it's now called public opinion. Public opinion is scripted propaganda by the New World Order to manipulate the behavior of the people. Public opinion polls are taken to gauge the people's acceptance of the New World as agenda. When the poll results are positive, the New World Order knows the programming has been successful. When the poll results are negative, the New World Order needs to tweak the programming until the desired response is achieved. While the subject and content of the propaganda is decided at Tavistock, is the realization of the propaganda executed in the US by well over 200 think tanks such as the Brookings Institute and the Rand Corporation, which are overseen and directed by the top New World Order mind control organization in the US, the Stanford Research Institute, SRE, in the international headquarters in California, in Menlo Park. The New World Order manifests their agenda by using fear to manipulate human emotions. In the past centuries, they have repeatedly used the same method to achieve their goals by creating a problem, reaction, and solution. Today, problem is COVID-19. another conspiracy theory. Let's think about that. Let me know in the comments of the YouTube video what you think. The method is as follows. The New World Order creates a problem by finding, training and assembling opposition group to create unrest in an established nation that they wish to impinge upon, and thus create opposing groups in a conflict that the New World Order themselves maneuvered into existence. In recent years, so-called opposition factions are usually called in the media as liberators or freedom fighters. The pyramid of power shows the role of every group and organization in the New World Order. On top of the pyramid are Crown Council of 13 world's richest, most powerful families. Then they go Committee of 300, world's richest, most powerful subfamilies. Then powerful subfamilies, the Round Table, which I'll be talking about in the next episode. World financial control. Then after that, central banks, tax revenue, interest revenue, Bank of International Settlements, WB, IMF, then world resource control, then corporations, then world population control, then after that religions, governments, education, media, then population, resource, labor units, and debt slaves like birth, school, labor, taxes, debts, retirement circle. The controlled media reports about the conflict with a barrage of videos and photos of terrible and bloody atrocities suffered by innocent people. The world demands something has to be done, and that is the desired reaction. The major nations, which are in fact puppets of the New World Order, then provide the solution by sailing in UN coalition force, like in Gulf War, or in UN peacekeepers in Bosnia, or NATO bombers and then ground troops in Kosovo, or soldiers to search for weapons of mass destruction, which of course are never found. Once there, the peacekeepers never leave. The goal is to have New World Order controlled military on major nations or strategic regions where it is likely for New World Order to face heavy resistance when the global takeover occurs. The New World Order's role in historical events. Many major wars, economical crises, and political events of the last centuries were set in motion by the New World Order. Among these staged events are the Spanish-American War in 1898, the World War I and II, the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution, the Great Depression, the rise of Hitler's Nazi Germany, the Vietnam War, the Korean War, the fall of the Soviet Union in 1989, the war in Kosovo, the Gulf War in 1991, and the wars in Iraq. The New World Order even had influence in the French Revolution in 1789. The gaining of ever more wealth, world domination, and total control over the population are the motivating forces of the New World Order leaders. The suffering among the population and the deaths of innocent people are non-issues for those individuals. The New World Order in the 20th century. During the 20th century, the term New World Order has been used many times by powerful statesmen such as Winston Churchill and Ronald Reagan. They used this term to refer to a new era where geopolitics and the balance of power in the world changed drastically after World War I and II. Over past centuries, many organizations have emerged such as the NATO, WTO, and WHO. These organizations are controlled by the New World Order. The mass media has become a very powerful tool which is being used by the New World Order to change the public opinion. The population accepts the New World Order agenda through manipulation without knowing it. 1913, prior to passage of the Federal Reserve Act, President Wilson's The New Freedom was published. This book contained all promises and campaign speeches of Woodrow Wilson in 1912 presidential campaign. Wilson promised less government, but when he became president, he did the exact opposite by adding new controls such as the Clayton Antitrust Act and the Federal Reserve System. In 1913, President Wilson's The New Freedom was published, in which he revealed, "Since I entered politics, I have chiefly had men's views confident to me privately. Some of the biggest men in the United States in the field of commerce and manufacturing are afraid of somebody, are afraid of something, and afraid of something. They know that there is power somewhere so organized, so subtle, so watchful, so interlocked, so complete, so pervasive that they had better not to speak above their breath when they speak in condemnation of it." On 23rd December 1913, the Federal Reserve, neither federal nor reserve, it is a privately owned institution, is founded. It was planned by a group of politicians and international bankers during a secret meeting in 1910 on Jekyll Island on Georgia. The Federal Reserve, which is controlled by a private group of bankers, takes over the power to create money from the American government. The Federal Reserve Act was rapidly approved by Congress right before Christmas. Congressman Charles A. Lindbergh, Sr., father of the well-known aviator, warned this act established the most gigantic trust on earth. When the president signs the act, the invisible government by money power, proven to exist by the money trust investigation, will be legalized. Damn, they really need power. In 1916, 3 years after the Federal Reserve was approved, President Wilson regrets his decision of signing the Federal Reserve Act. He admits that the power has been transferred to a group of powerful men who now control and dominate the nation. In 1916, 3 years after signing the Federal Reserve Act, President Woodrow Wilson stated, "I am a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country. A great industrial nation is controlled by its system of credit. Our system of credit is concentrated. The growth of the nation, therefore, and all of our activities are in hands of a few men. We have come to be one of the worst ruled, one of the most completely controlled and dominated governments in the civilized world. No longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men." New World Order's role in the Bolshevik Revolution. In 1912, Colonel Edward Mandell House, a close advisor of President Wilson, publishes Philip Drew Administrator. In his book, he promotes socialism as dreamed of by Karl Marx. In 1970, Lenin is able to commit a coup d'état in Russia with financial support from bankers in London and New York. Lenin received more than $20 million from the firm Loeb & Co., which was owned by Jacob Schiff in Rothschild. The financiers were against the Tsars of Russia because they refused their request to set up a central bank in Russia and supported President Lincoln during the Civil War. A few years after Lenin took over power in Russia, he said the following about apparent contradiction of the links between communism and capitalist leaders. There also exists another alliance, at first glance a strange one, a surprising one, but if you think about it, in fact, one which is well grounded and easy to understand. This is the alliance between our communist leaders and your capitalists. In 1920, Winston Churchill recognized the link between the Illuminati and the Russian Revolution. He states, "From the days of Spartacus, Weishaupt, of those of Karl Marx to those of Trotsky, Bela Kun, Rosa Luxemburg and Emma Goldman, this worldwide conspiracy for the overthrow of civilization and for the reconstitution of society and basis of arrested development of envious malevolence and impossible quality has been steadily growing. It played a definitely recognizable role in the tragedy of French Revolution. It has been the mainspring of every subversive movement during the 19th century, and now at last this band of extraordinary personalities from the underworld of great cities of Europe and America have gripped the Russian people by the hair of their heads and have become practically the undisputed masters of the enormous empire. Establishments of CFR. What is actually the CFR? The Council on Foreign Relations. On 30th May 1990, a group of influential American and British people established the Institute of International Affairs in the United States and the Royal Institute of International Affairs in England during a meeting arranged by Colonel House, attended by several Fabian socialists. In 1921, Colonel House recognized the Institute of International Affairs into reorganizes the Institute of International Affairs into the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR. In the last 70 years, 80% of the top positions in every US administration, whether Republican or Democrat, have been occupied by members of this organization. On 15 December 1922, the CFR endorses a world government. In its magazine Foreign Affairs, author Philip Kerr states, obviously there is going to be no peace or prosperity for humanity as long as the earth remains divided into 50 or 60 independent nations until some kind of international system is created. The real problem today is that of the world government. H.G. Wells' New World Order. He is the author of The Open Conspiracy and the Shape of Things to Come. In 1928, H.G. Wells, a former Fabian socialist, published his book, The Open Conspiracy, Blueprints for a World Revolution. In his books, Wells describes how to work towards a utopian society, a new world order. In his book, he stated the political world of the open conspiracy must weaken, face. The political world of the open conspiracy must weaken, efface, incorporate, and supersede existing governments. The open conspiracy is the natural inheritor of socialist and communist enthusiasm. It may be in control of Moscow before it is in control of New York. The character of the open conspiracy will now be plainly displayed. It will be a world religion. In 1933, H.G. Wells published another book titled The Shape of Things to Come. In this book, he predicts a Second World War around 1940, originating from a German-Polish dispute. The modern world states would be created on his third attempt and comes out an important occurrences in Basra, Iraq. In 1933, H.G. Wells wrote in his book The Shape of Things to Come, although world government had been plainly coming for some years, although it had been endlessly feared and murmured against, it found no opposition anywhere. In 1940, H.G. Wells published The New World Order. In this book, he advocates a new world order or collectives, one world state existing of socialist democracies. He proposes universal conscription for service and believes that nationalist individualism is a sickness. In January 1940, H.G. Wells published The New World Order, in which he wrote, "The manifest necessity for some collective world control to eliminate warfare and less generally admitted necessity for a collective control of the economic and political life of mankind are aspects of one and the same process. He proposes that this be accomplished through universal law and propaganda or education. Federal Council of Churches. March 1942. The Federal Council of Churches program for a just and durable peace. Ultimately, a world government of delegated powers. Second, complete abandonment of US isolation. Strong immediate limitations on national sovereignty, international control of all armies and navies, and universal system of money, so planned as to prevent inflation and deflation, worldwide freedom of immigration, progressive elimination of all tariff and quota restrictions on world trade, autonomy for all subject and colonial peoples with much better treatment for Negroes in the US, no punitive reparations, no humiliating decrees of war guilt, nor arbitrary dismemberment of nations, a democratically controlled international bank to make development capital available in all parts of the world without the predatory and imperialistic aftermath so characteristic of large-scale private and government loans. The Just and Durable Peace Program created during the Federal Council of Churches Conference in March 1942. In March 1942, Time magazine published an article which describes the agenda of the Federal Council. Council of Churches. As part of the World Council of Churches to create a global authority, a conference of the leaders of the council comes out in favor of world. I already said that. Attendances of the Federal Council of Churches conferences in 1942 stated a new order of economic life is both imminent and imperative. A new order that is sure to come either through voluntary cooperation within the framework of democracy or through explosive revelation. The New World Order after World War II. On 28th of June 1945, the President Truman shows support for the idea for the world government in a speech. It will be just as easy for nations to get along in the Republic of the world as it is for us to get along in the Republic of the US. On 24 October 1945, the United Nations Charter comes into force. On the same day, Senator Glenn Taylor introduces Senate Resolution 183, which calls upon the United States Senate to publicly support the idea of creating a world republic, including an international police force. On 17 February 1950, CFR members and international financier James Warburg reveals to the Senate Foreign Relations Subcommittee, we shall have one world government whether you like it or not, constant or conquest. On 19 February 1950, the Senate Foreign Relations Subcommittee introduces Senate concurrent Resolution 66, which states, whereas in order to achieve universal peace and justice, the present Charter of the United Nations should be changed to provide a true world government constitution. In 1952, the World Association of Parliamentarians for World Government creates a map which is designed to show how foreign troops would occupy the 6 areas into which Canada and the US will be divided as part of their world government plan. In 1954, Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands established the Bilderberger Group. This is a group of people consisting of important corporate leaders, international bankers, and top statesmen who meet secretly on an annual basis. In 1958, Grenville Clark and Louis Sohn published World Peace Through World Law. In this book, they advocate to use the UN as a world government, to use a world police force, and to disarm the world. In 1959, the Mid-Century Challenge to U.S. Foreign Policy is published, sponsored by the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. It states that the United States cannot escape, and indeed should, welcome the tasks which history has imposed on us. This is the task of helping to shape a new world order in all its dimensions: spiritual, economic, political, social. In 1961, the United States Department introduces document 7277, named Freedom from War, the United States Program for General and Complete Disarmament in a Peaceful World. The document contains a three-stage plan to disarm all nations and arm the UN, with the final stage in which no nation would have the military force to oppose the progressively strengthening UN peace force. In 1962, Nelson Rockefeller published The Future of Federalism. The former governor of New York states the recent events compellingly demanded a new world order, as the old order is crumbling and there is a new and free order struggling to be born. In 1962, Rockefeller states in his book, The Future of Federalism, a fear of nationalism. The nation-state is becoming less and less competent to perform its international political tasks. Those are some of the reasons pressing us to lead vigorously toward the true building of a new world order. With voluntary service, and our dedicated faith in the brotherhood of all mankind, sooner perhaps than we may realize, there we evolve the basis for a federal structure of the free world. In 1966, Professor Keller Quigley, Bill Clinton's former mentor at the Georgetown University, published a massive book named Tragedy and Hope, in which he writes, "There does exist and has existed for a generation an international network which operates to some extent in the way the radical right believes the Communist Act. In fact, this network, which we may identify as the roundtable groups, has no aversion to cooperating with the communists or any other groups, and frequently does so. I know the operations of this network because I have studied it for 20 years and was permitted for 2 years in the early 1960s to examine its papers and secret records. I have no aversion to it or to most of its aims, and have for much of my life been close to it and to many of its instruments. I have objected both in the past and recently to a few of its policies, but in general my chief difference of opinion is that it wishes to remain unknown, and I believe its role in history is significant enough to be known." In 1967, Richard Nixon calls for New World Order in Asia after Vietnam in the October issue of Foreign Affairs. Nixon writes of nations' dispositions to evolve regional approaches to development needs and to evolution of a New World Order. In 1968, J. Elmer Morgan, former editor of the NEA Journal, former editor of NEA Journal publishes the American Citizen's Handbook in which he states the coming of the United Nations and the urgent necessity that it evolve into a more comprehensive form of world government places upon the citizens of the US an increased obligation to make the most of their citizenship, which now widens into active world citizenship. On 26 July 1968, Nelson Rockefeller shows his support for a new world order. In Associated Press article, Rockefeller states that as president he would work toward the international creation of a new world order. In 1972, President Nixon visits China during a meeting with Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai. Former CFR member and now President Richard Nixon expresses the hope that each of us has to build a new world order. In April 1972, in a speech to the Association for Childhood Education International, Chester M. Pierce, professor of Education and Physiatry in the Faculty of Medicine at Harvard University, proclaims every child in America entering school at the age of 5 is insane because he comes to school with certain allegiances toward our founding fathers, toward his parents, toward a belief in a supernatural being. It's up to you, teachers, to make all of these sick children well by creating an international child of the future. On 18th May 1972, in speaking of coming of world government, Roy M. Ashe, director of the Office of Management and Budget, states that within 2 decades, the institutional framework for a world economic community will be in place, and aspects of individual sovereignty will be given over to a supranational authority. In July 1973, international banker and member of the Council on Foreign Relations, David Rockefeller, founds a new organization named the Trilateral Commission, also coming in the next episode about Trilateral Commission, of which the official goal is to harmonize the economic, cultural, social and political relations between the 3 major economic areas in the world, hence the name Trilateral. He invites future President Jimmy Carter to become one of the founding members. Zbigniew Brzezinski becomes the organization's first director. New World Order from 1970 to 1990. On 18th May 1972, Roy M. Ashe, director of the Office of Management and Budget, says the following about the coming of a world government. Within 2 decades, the institutional framework for a world economic community will be in place and aspects of individual sovereignty will be given over to supranational authority. On 17 September 1973, the Club of Rome, a UN organization, publishes a document entitled Regionalized and Adaptive Model of Global World System. This report revealed a plan of the Club of Rome to divide the entire world into 10 regions. The Club of Rome planned to divide the entire world into 10 economical political regions, which it refers to as kingdoms. In 1976, the Club of Rome issues a new report, Rio, Reshaping the International Order, which emphasizes the need for a new international order, including an economic redistribution of wealth. In 1973, Paul Kurtz and Edwin H. Wilson published the Humanist Manifesto II. The manifesto shows the worldview from a humanism perspective. In 1973, the Humanist Manifesto II is published, which states the next century can be and should be the humanistic century. We stand at the dawn of a new age. A secular society on a planetary scale is non-theist. We begin with humans, not God, nature, not deity. We deplore the division of humankind on nationalistic grounds. Thus, we look to development of system of world law and world order based upon transnational federal government. The true revolution is occurring. In 1974, the World Conference of Religion for Peace is held in Rouen, Belgium. Douglas Roche presents a document named "We Can Achieve a New World Order." In the same conference, the UN calls for wealth redistribution in a document named New International Economic Order. The UN General Assembly creates an agenda to redistribute the wealth from the rich to the poor countries. In 1975, a report named New World Order is published by a Center of International Studies, Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Studies, Princeton University. In the same year, in Congress, 92 representatives and 32 senators signed a Declaration of Independence. Created by historian Henry Steele Commager, the declaration states that we must join with others to bring forth a new world order. Narrow notions of national sovereignty must not be permitted to curtail that obligation. In 1975, Congresswoman Marjorie Holt refuses to sign the declaration, a declaration of independence, saying it calls for the surrender of our national sovereignty to international organizations. It declares that our economy should be regulated by the international authorities. It proposes that we enter a new world order that would redistribute the wealth created by the American people. In 1975, retired Navy Admiral Chester Ward, former CFR member and former Judge Advocate General of the U.S. Navy, writes in Critic that the goal of the CFR is the submergence of the U.S. sovereignty and national independence into an all-powerful and one-world government. In 1977, Harlan Cleveland of Aspen Institute for Humanistic Studies publishes the Third Tri-Edward Order, which calls for changing Americans' attitudes and institutions for complete disarmament, except for international soldiers, and for individual entitlement to food, health, and education. In 1979, FEMA, which stands for Federal Emergency Management Agency, is given huge powers. It has power in case of national emergency to move entire families, suspend laws, arrest and imprison civilians without a warrant, and hold them without trial. It can seize food supplies, transportation systems, property, and can suspend the Constitution. In 1984, James McGregor published The Power to Lead, in which he admits that the framers of the U.S. Constitution have simply been too shrewd for us. They have outwitted us. They designed separated institutions that cannot be unified by mechanical leakages, frail bridges, tinkering. If we are to turn the founders upside down, we must directly confront the constitutional structure they erected. New World Order near the end of the Cold War. In 1988, former Undersecretary of State and CFR member George Ball, in a January 24 interview in the New York Times, says the Cold War should no longer be the kind of obsessive concern that it is. Neither side is going to attack the other deliberately. If we could internationalize by using the UN in conjunction with the Soviet Union, because we now no longer have to fear it in most cases a Soviet veto, then we could begin to transform the shape of the world and might get the UN back to doing something useful. Sooner or later we are going to have to face restructuring our institutions so they are not confined merely to the nation states. Start first on a regional and ultimately we could move to a world basis. On the 7th December 1988, in an address to the UN, Mikhail Gorbachev calls for mutual consensus. World progress is only possible through a search for universal human consensus as we move forward to a new world order. On 12 May 1989, President Bush invites the Soviets to join World Order, speaking to the graduating class at Texas A&M University. Bush says that the US is ready to welcome the Soviet Union back into the world order. On 12th of May 1989, President Bush invites the Soviets to join the world order. During a speech to the graduating class at Texas A&M University, Bush says that the US is ready to welcome the Soviet Union back into the world order. On 11th of September 1990, President Bush calls the Gulf War an opportunity of the New World Order. In speech to Congress entitled Towards a New World Order, Bush states, "The crisis in the Persian Gulf offers a great opportunity to move toward an historic period of cooperation. Out of these troubled times, a new world order can emerge, in which the nations of the world, East and West, North and South, can prosper and live in harmony. Today, the New World Order is struggling to be born." On 25 September 1990, in the speech to the UN, Soviet Foreign Minister Edward Shevardnadze, I'm sorry if I misspell the last name, describes Iraq's invasion of Kuwait as an act of terrorism that has been perpetrated against the emerging New World Order. On the 31st December, Gorbachev states that the New World Order would be ushered in by the Gulf crisis. On the 1st of October 1990, in a speech to the UN, President Bush praises the collective strength of the world community expressed by the UN and a historic movement towards a new world order, a new partnership of nations, a time when humankind came into its own, to bring about a revolution of the spirit and the mind and to begin a journey into a new age. In 1991, President Bush praises the New World Order in State of the Union message. What is at stake is more than one small country. It's a big idea, a new world order to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind, based on shared principles and the rule of law. The elimination of 1,000 points of light. The winds of change are with us now. On the 6th of February 1991, President Bush speaks to the Economic Club of New York. My vision of New World Order foresees United Nations with revitalized peacekeeping function. In June 1991, the Council on Foreign Relations organizes a conference with a subject, Rethinking America's Security Beyond Cold War to New World Order. The conference is attended by 65 top members of military, labor, academia, government, and the media from 9 nations. Later, several of the conference members joined some 100 other world leaders for a private meeting of the Bilderberg Society in Baden-Baden, Germany. The Bilderbergers have great influence in determining the foreign policies of their respective governments. In June 1991, world leaders are gathered for a private meeting of the Bilderberg Society in Washington Post. The New York Times, Time Magazine, and great other publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity during those years. But the world is now more sophisticated and prepared to march towards a world government. The supranational sovereignty of intellectual elite and the world bankers is surely preferable to the national autodetermination practiced in past centuries. On 29 October 1991, former United States Ambassador to Romania David Funderburg says to a North Carolina audience, George Bush has been surrounding himself with people who believe in one government. They believe that the Soviet system and the American system are converging. On 30th October 1991, President Gorbachev holds a speech at the Middle East peace talks in Madrid where he says, "We are beginning to see practical support, and this is a very significant sign of movements towards a new era, a new age. We see both in our country and elsewhere ghosts of the old thinking. When we rid ourselves of their presence, we will be better able to move toward the New World Order, relying on the relevant mechanisms of the United Nations." New World Order after the Cold War. In 1994, in the Human Development Report released by a UN Development Program, there was a chapter titled Global Governments for the 21st Century. The writer for this report was appointed by Bill Clinton. His name is James Gustave Speth. The opening sentence of this report stated, "Mankind's problems can no longer be solved by national government. What is needed is a world government. This can be achieved by strengthening the United Nations system." On 3rd of May 1994, Presidential Bill Clinton drafted Presidential Decision Directive 25 and then declares it classified so the American people can see what it says. The summarized version of PDD 25 issued to members of Congress reveals us that it gives the President the power to turn over control of the US Army to UN command. On 23rd September 1994, the globalists realized that more and more people learn about their plans for world domination. They have only a limited amount of time in which to realize their plans. In a speech of the UN Ambassadors Dinner, David Rockefeller says, "The present window of opportunity during which a truly peaceful and interdependent world order might be built will not be open for too long. We are on the verge of global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis and the nations will accept the new world order." In the fall of 1995, the State of the World Forum was organized, financed by the Gorbachev Foundation located at the Presidio in San Francisco. Foundation President Jim Garrison leads the meeting, which is attended by powerful people from around the world, including George Bush, Maurice Strong, Mikhail Gorbachev, Margaret Thatcher, and many others. The meeting is about the oneness of humanity and the coming global government. The term global governance is now used instead of New World Order, since the latter has become a political liability, being a lightning rod for opponents of global government. In September 1995, Popular Science magazine published an article about a top-secret US Navy installation named HAARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, in the state of Alaska. This project shoots powerful radio energy into the Earth's upper atmosphere. One of the goals of the project is to create the capability to manipulate local weather using the techniques developed by Bernard Eastland. The project has been underway since 1990. In 1996, the United Nations published a 42-page report entitled Our Global Neighborhood. It describes a plan for global governments, calling for an international meeting on global governance in 1998 for the purpose of submitting to the world the necessary agreements and treaties for ratification by the year 2000. In the fall of 1996, State of the World Forum 2 takes place again in San Francisco. This time, many of the meetings are closed to the public. There are hundreds more speeches and articles by those actively working to create a one-world government. The 21st century, the world is now on the edge of the new World War, the state of emergency, looked for by the globalists to impose martial law, and the universal microchip under the skin is coming closer every day. We are at the brink of the new world order. And that's it for today's episode. See you in another episode of the new Hera podcast. Bye.